So next topic of your syllabus is concepts and terminologies used in a subject microbiology. Let us discuss about them. So first term here it is infection. So infection is invasion and multiplication of bacteria, virus and parasites in a host body is called as infection. So any foreign body, it might be a bacteria, virus or any parasite, when it enters into the body, or invasion and multiplication they are telling. Invasion means entry into the body and they multiply, and that is called as infection. Infection is invasion and multiplication of bacteria, virus and parasites in a host body is called as infection. So any foreign body, bacteria or any virus, when they enter into the body, when they start multiplying, so that condition is known as infection. It is caused due to the failure of a host defense mechanism. So we have a physiological defense mechanism when any foreign body like bacteria, virus enters into our body. So our immune system starts fighting against virus or bacteria. That is known as defense mechanism. So immunity, otherwise called as resistance power of our body, is known as immunity. So when our immunity fails to fight against the virus and bacteria, so these virus and bacteria they go on multiplying. So that is called as infection. Next, second terminology or concept of microbiology is the disease. It is the result of a infection. So when bacteria enters in a body, it starts multiplying and a disease will establish, and it starts disturbing the normal functioning of our body, and it leads to signs and symptoms. Pathogens not only multiply in the host but also release some byproducts like toxins. So that byproducts, they may be toxic or they may not be toxic to the host. So that leads to a disease. So when bacteria or virus enters a body, it starts multiplying and it will disturb the functioning of the body, and it starts leading to some fever or discomfort. All that, some of the symptoms will arise. So that entry of organism and multiplication is known as infection. So that infection will lead to a disease. Then third terminology here it is etiological agent. Any causative agent of a disease is known as etiological agent. So causative agent, it might be bacteria, virus or protozoa or fungi or algae, anything it might be. So any agent which causes a disease is known as etiological agent. Maybe opportunistic pathogen. So opportunistic pathogen means bacteria which is present all over our body. So inside our stomach, inside our intestines. So everywhere we have a bacteria which are not causing any infection to us. They are not harmful to our health. So they are just there present on our body. But when our immune capacity, means immunity, when our resistance power goes down because of some problem, ill health, if we are not eating good food, if we are not sleeping well, so if there is any problem with our health, our immunity goes down. So when our immunity goes down, all these organisms, bacteria which are present on our skin, body, they become pathogenic. Sometimes they start causing some infections. So etiological agent is anything, it might be bacteria, virus or anything which leads to a disease is known as etiological agent. It might be a opportunistic pathogen. So opportunistic pathogen means what? Organism which is present on our body will be waiting for the opportunity. That opportunity comes when our resistance power of a body goes down. That is known as opportunistic pathogen. Next terminology or a concept, that is pathogen. So pathogen may be defined as an organism that has an ability to cause a disease. Any organism which has the ability to cause the disease is known as pathogen. So when enters into the body, it will multiply and it will cause an infection, and then that will result into a disease. So pathogen is any organism which is having a capacity to cause a disease. What happens? Pathogen will enter the body and it will cause the infection, and then that infection will lead to a disease. So that is about pathogen. And next let us discuss about the fomites. Fomites means all non-living things or objects which are present in the environment of the hospital used by the patient. So when they are present in the environment of the patient, dust particle will be there, or when the patient is touching the chair, table, or anything it might be, object which is there in the environment. When the patient is touching those objects, organisms will sit onto that object. So when someone else will come and when he uses that object, he will get infected from that organisms. So such a non-living objects which can carry the organisms, they are known as fomites, but they play an important role in transmission of pathogens. They are the objects present in the environment of the patient. They can transfer the organisms from one place to other place. Take an example: water bottle, you are taking it to the hospital, patient will use that water bottle. And tiffin box, you have taken food for your patient, so he will eat food, he will drink water, and he will give back to you that water bottle and tiffin box. So when you carry that tiffin box and water bottle to your home, you are carrying the organisms which are sitting on that water bottle and a tiffin box. So this water bottle and tiffin box, they are acting as a fomites. They are the objects which carry the organisms from one place to other place. And then pathogenicity. Pathogenicity is the ability of a pathogen to cause a disease. So any organism, microorganism which is having the ability to cause a disease, that ability of a microorganism to cause a disease is known as pathogenicity. Pathogenicity of that particular organism. Next is virulence. Virulence is the degree of pathogenicity. What degree of pathogenicity is there with particular organism to cause a disease? That is known as virulence. How much strong it is. So degree of pathogenicity of a pathogen is known as virulence. Next let us discuss about incubation period. So incubation period is a period from the entry of organism into the body, and it will start multiplying inside the body until the appearance of symptoms is known as incubation period. So organism will enter into the body and it starts multiplying and it will cause the infection, and the disease will start when the symptoms start appearing. So the time period between the entry of organism into the body and the exhibition of the first symptom is known as incubation period in such a case. But in some of the infections, so when the organism enters into the body, it starts multiplying after 5 days, after 7 days, or after 3 days, they start showing some symptoms. So that period is known as incubation period. And then morbidity rate. So morbidity rate is a ratio of the number of people that are suffering from a disease to the total population. It is expressed in percentage. So means out of the total population, how many of the people are suffering from corona infection. So we have 1.3 billion population. Out of these 1.3 billion people, how many are suffering from corona infection? So that is known as morbidity rate. So morbidity rate is equal to number of people suffering from the disease divided by total population. How many number of people are suffering from the corona infection? out of total population of India is known as morbidity rate. Suffering rate it is otherwise called as. And next, more let's discuss about the mortality rate. So death rate otherwise called as. So mortality rate is a ratio of number of fatalities or otherwise called as death due to a particular disease to the total population. So 1.3 billion is our population. Out of 1.3 billion, 6 lakh people are suffering from corona infection. Out of these 6 lakh people who are suffering from corona infection, around 5 to 6,000 people have died already. So that is the rate of death. So that is known as mortality rate, mortality due to corona infection. So it is uh, death rate of a people, how many people are dying due to particular disease. And then mortality rate is equal to number of deaths per total population. So that is known as mortality rate. Morbidity rate, suffering rate, those people who are suffering from infection or disease, that is morbidity rate. Suffering rate it is called as. Mortality rate is death rate, how many people are dying. And next is opportunistic pathogen. I told you opportunistic pathogen means any organism which is present normally as a normal flora. Our body has a flora. So in that flora there will be bacteria, as many bacteria will be there on our body. So they are not harming our health. They don't cause any disease. They don't cause any infection. They are there on our body continuously, always. But when our resistance power, immunity goes down, these normal bacteria of our normal flora, they become pathogenic. So that is known as opportunistic infection. Opportunistic infection, otherwise called as opportunistic pathogen. Pathogen is a normal bacteria which is present on our body turns pathogenic. That is known as opportunistic pathogen. Next, let us discuss about prophylaxis. Next concept, or otherwise called as terminology. So here it is prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is a prevention of a disease, nothing but prophylactic treatment. They say no. So as a preventive measure, they are taking hydroxychloroquine tablet for coronavirus. That is a prophylactic treatment to prevent the corona infection. All healthcare providers and family attenders of a infected person, the government is giving hydroxychloroquine tablet. You know, all through the world, India has sent the tablets. We are preparing here in India hydroxychloroquine tablet. We had more. We have supplied even to America also, England also, everywhere, Saudi, Dubai. So Indian government has sent hydroxychloroquine tablets to all other countries who all were in need. A corona infection with a hydroxychloroquine tablet is a prophylactic treatment. So those who take hydroxychloroquine so may not suffer from corona infection. So much severity will be less, they are telling. So that is a prophylactic one to prevent the disease. And next, carriers. Carriers are the people infected host, otherwise called as. They don't exhibit any symptoms, but they carry the virus inside their body. Take an example now. A corona infected patients, we had around 250 patients in Belgaum Institute of Medical Science, BIMS, here in our hospital itself. So all of them were asymptomatic. They were not presenting any symptoms, but they had a virus inside their body. So if they were left outside, they would have supplied the virus. They would have given the virus to all others, all other people in the community. So for that purpose, they were kept here in a quarantine wards. So that they are called as carriers. Carriers are the people who got infection with the microorganism, but they are not exhibiting any symptoms, but they carry and they transfer the viruses to many people. They are called as carriers. And then next, antigen. Antigen is an agent which induces the immune system to form antibodies. So antigen, it might be a microbial cell or it might be a byproduct of a cell, bacteria, virus, or any byproduct of bacteria acts as an antigen. It is also a protein. A foreign body, when enters into the body, stimulates our immune system to synthesize antibodies. That is called as antigen. Next, antibody. Antibody is a glycoprotein molecule produced in a response to antigen. Glycoprotein molecule which is produced in response to antigen. So, microorganism, virus or bacteria, when enters into our body, some protein synthesized by our immune system, that is called as antibody. Next, antigen antibody reaction will take place, that is called as infection. So if our antibodies are more, if our immune system is strong, they will kill all the organisms, microorganisms, and our health will be maintained. If the microorganisms is strong, a infection will occur, and then infection will lead to, it means multiplication of microorganisms will start multiplying because antibodies are not enough to fight against. That infection will lead to disease, symptoms will arise, and we will suffer from some disease, and we go to hospital and get a treatment. So that is all about pathogenicity, carriers, antigen and antibody. So next, two more concepts are there, terminologies. One is vaccine. So vaccine is any antigenic preparation which is induced into the body of host. So when he gets infected with a particular virus, take an example now. So to prevent the corona infection, we need to get a vaccine. So those all people who get the vaccine, they are strong enough to fight against the coronavirus. When coronavirus enters in the body, our antibodies will be ready to fight against that coronavirus. Vaccine is prepared from some antigenic preparation from that particular coronavirus itself, so that when it is induced or put into the body, it will stimulate our immune system to synthesize the antibodies, and they will be circulating in our body blood. So when the coronavirus enters, they will fight against coronavirus, like that. So we are taking a measles vaccine or BCG vaccine, polio vaccine. So likewise, these are the antigenic preparations which when enter into the host body, they immunize, means they stimulate our immune system to synthesize the antibodies against particular organism. That is known as vaccine. And then next is immunity. Immunity means it is a resistance power of the body, our body. So our body has some capacity to fight against microorganisms. So we are not going to suffer from infections because our resistance power is strong. We are eating good food, we are doing exercise, our immunity is strong. So we are not facing with any infections. That immune system will synthesize antibodies against any organism which enters into the body. Take an example, bacteria will enter into the body, so our immune system will synthesize the antibodies against it, and those antibodies will fight against the bacteria and it will kill the bacteria and our health will be maintained. So that power to fight against the bacteria or virus which when enter into the body is known as resistance power, or otherwise called as immune system.